Trusted advisors are one of the secrets to abundance. I'm Angela Brown, and this is Ask a House Cleaner. This is a show where you get to ask a house cleaning question, and I get to help you find an answer. Now, we're doing an abundance series right now, which takes us from a place of scarcity all the way through to wild success. And there are a few stopping points along the way. And if you get through these stopping points along the way, when you get to the wild success, you will not self-sabotage it because you will be expecting it and you will be prepared for it. Okay, this one is all about trusted advisors. Now, as your business starts to grow and you start to make a lot of money, there will be an opportunity for you to diversify your interests, and I recommend that you do. We don't want to keep all of our eggs in one basket. And every successful business owner that's out there rarely has one business. They usually have their hands in 2 or 3 different businesses. And if you look at billionaires, for example, they own multiple companies, right? So you will diversify and you will have multiple companies as your business grows and as your wealth grows and as you start duplicating and replicating the systems that you have from one business to the next. All right, well, when I was 24 years old, my business was wildly successful, and I was going to grow up to be like rich and famous and all these things, and I decided that I would buy another business. I did not at the time have any trusted advisors. I was going on my gut instinct and just sheer determination, and I bought a business that had 10 years of back employee withholding taxes that had not been paid. And it wasn't 2 months into the business when the IRS came after me. And they demanded the 10 years of back employee withholding taxes because I was now the president of the company and my name was on the dotted line, and the sale of the business triggered an audit. Okay, so here I was, 24 years old. Every single thing I had was confiscated, sold at an auction, and then I was sued for the difference, or I was billed for the difference by the IRS. We lost our company cars, and it was all of my personal assets. Okay, everything in my businesses. It wasn't just that business alone, because as I put everything together, I had leveraged all of my other assets to buy this business. So now I lost everything. And I sat there at 24 years old, dumbfounded. I was absolutely stumped. And number one, how did a person my age have such incredible credit that I was even allowed to buy a business of this magnitude at this age? The second thing that really perplexed me was, where's all the help? Who's here to help me, and why am I doing this alone? Here I am, a kid. I am a kid making adult decisions, and I just screwed up really bad. And if I take responsibility for this, I now own nothing. Okay, I own nothing. They've confiscated my vehicles. They've repossessed everything. They repossessed our computers, company equipment, fax machines. And back in the day, it was fax machines. That's how we communicated. They took everything. And there I was left absolutely stumped and dumbfounded. And what do I do now? Okay, the reason I tell you this story is because as the story continues, that incident in my life shaped my business perspective and it shaped who I am as a person. It was a very, very difficult situation to go through, and it took me 9 years to pay it off. I went to every single creditor that I had and I said, listen, I made a commitment to you. And this goes back to a previous session we had on accepting responsibility. I'm going to accept responsibility for this scenario. I made a promise to you. I took a loan out from you. These are bankers. These are individuals. These are companies. These are vendors. I made a commitment to you. I'm now in an interesting situation where I don't have the money to pay you. I've never been late on a payment, and now I have no money to pay you. And if you force the money from me, you'll force me into bankruptcy, at which point I'm not obligated to pay you. I will pay you every cent I owe you, but you have to give me my own terms because right now I have no money. And they've just put liens on my bank accounts. I have no way to get the money to pay you. So please be patient. Every single person I went back to said, I'm here, I understand, you've always been good to us, but we will work with you. And it took me 9 years to pay that off. During this scenario, I had to let employees go. I went to the bank to cash a check for payroll that week, and the bank cashed the check and said, thank you very much. I said, where's the money? And they said, oh, there's a lien on your bank account. Any money that you bring into us is ours. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. And I had to go home and I had to fire employees that were doing a great job, that had no business being fired, and they were counting on their livelihood for me. I was in a really, really bad situation. And I was young and I was inexperienced and I didn't know how to resolve that on my own. The reason I bring up this story is this. As business owners, we're going to get ourselves in a bind. It's part of human nature. It's part of growing up. It's part of building a business. But you don't have to make the mistakes that other people have made. This mistake I made all on my own, okay? I did not do the research to even find out that there were back employee withholding taxes. I didn't even know that that was a question I should ask. And so when I signed on the dotted line and I took ownership of that company, it was never on my mind. I never even thought to ask those questions. But now, going into business today, yeah, that is one of my questions. I want to know exactly what is hiding that we didn't talk about that is going to come back to bite me. I need to know that before I agree to something. So, trusted advisors, before you make any fast decisions, before you just say, oh yeah, let's do this, let's do that, and just flying by the seat of your pants, it is super important that you just stop and that you ground yourself and that you say, what are the possible scenarios that can happen? Am I prepared for that? Am I set up for that? Am I prepared for what happens down the road from that? If we do this down the road, these are the consequences. Because every action we have also has a set of consequences and rewards. So what are the rewards and what are the consequences? And am I prepared for that? Do I have enough knowledge to make that information? And it's okay if you don't. That's where you get a coach or you hire someone else who has experience in that area. In this particular scenario, it would have been wise if I would have hired an accountant. It would have been wise for me to sit down and go over all the books. It would have been wise for me to interview the employees and find out exactly what was happening and tell me about your tax situation. And for me to look through all of those things, I didn't even know to do that, okay? So you will make mistakes, and that's part of the growth process. When that happens, you want to bounce back up and you want to get up and start going again so that you don't lose a lot of time and momentum in the down period, which I did. It took a couple of years just for me to get my head back on straight and for me to start over again and for me to get back in the cleaning business and make a go of this. Because as I went to buy this other business, I diverted a lot of my attention. And in the process, I lost everything in this business. I lost everything in my cleaning company, okay? So then I started over from scratch, literally going, oh my goodness, should I even be in business for myself? I actually went on a job interview. I was going to go get a job at another company. And during the time, I sat in the job interview and I was all dressed up in some business suit or something. And the guy said, tell me why you want this job. And I sat there in this job interview and I said, I don't want the job at all. I said, I just failed miserably as an entrepreneur and I'm just in survival mode right now. And he said, that's one of the most honest things you could possibly say. My suggestion to you is don't accept this job, get back out there and go again. And he was a trusted advisor in that moment. I came to him for a job and what he gave me was life advice. Get back out there and go again. And I got back out there and I'm like, okay, I had to take a bus to get to that job interview because my car had been repossessed. It was so terrible, such terrible times. We've got more fun stories about that coming up in our next part in our Abundance series. If you have a chance to make a huge business decision, stop and slow down. Get advice from other people. And I'm not talking about random Facebook friends. I'm talking about somebody who is actually a specialist in the area who has your best interests in mind. And that might be somebody that you pay, but that's going to be money well spent and it could save 9 years of your life. In my situation, it was 9 years trying to recover from that situation. All right. So, trusted advisors is the key to abundance. All right, I hope this helps. If it does, leave your questions and comments in the notes below. Until we meet again, leave the world a cleaner place than when you found it.